What is up, everyone, and welcome back to Men vs. Movies. I'm Griffin, as always, and this week, in honor of the release of the heist film Den of Thieves, I thought it'd be a great idea to sit down and do our top 5 best heist films. And obviously, I could do this alone, but it's better when you have other people. So I asked Sean Chandler from Sean Chandler Talks About to join me. Sean, say hello to everyone.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Chandler. I just love to talk about movies. So over on my channel, I review movies, I rank movies, and hey, over here we're gonna rank some heist movies, so should be fun.
Hey, there we go. Ranking heist movies. Now, this is different because you usually do top 10.
Yes.
This is top 5, so it's a little bit more cutthroat with this.
Yes, it
list.
is.
I was talking to you earlier before we started, and it was kind of tricky to come up with 5 heist films because there are so many and there's a lot of good ones, but then once you start thinking outside the box, there becomes even more.
Exactly. That's kind of when you first asked me about this, I wrote down, like 4 different ones. I was like, those are some good heist movies. I started doing some research and I went, oh crap, I don't know how I'm going to make this list. There's so many potentials to pick from that legitimately are movies about a heist.
It's crazy stuff. Well, anyways, we could geek out about all these heist movies, but let's get down to the list. The way this is gonna work is we're just gonna trade one apiece, and then we're gonna eventually reveal our number ones. We'll save the honorable mentions for the end. That way we don't give anything on our list away. So, Sean, the floor is yours. What is your number 5?
All right, I'll kick mine off with an outside the box pick, and I'm gonna go with AntMan. It's the Marvel movie that took the scale and the scope and it shrunk it down, and it told a story all about trying to steal technology. I mean, it's a heist movie in a comic book movie and just a ton of fun. And so it's a movie where you would expect Paul Rudd to be the funny man, but Michael Pena is stealing the show with his jokes. As a heist movie, it does something so different with the genre because it's a guy in a suit that shrinks him down. And so you get a lot of different fun elements. It gives it a distinct place both as a comic book movie, as an MCU movie, and then as a heist movie. Each one of those, so to me, it just pops out as a movie that's very enjoyable. And then when you throw like guys like Michael Douglas in there, just kind of propping it up a little bit, giving it a little bit more gravitas. This is one I thoroughly enjoyed. AntMan, I was like everybody else going, all right, Marvel, I kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel on that one. And then I just had a blast with this movie on all the different levels.
No, I'm right there with you. And I considered it because I do love it. And believe it or not, it's my top 6 or top 5 favorite MCU movies. Like that's how much I love this film. It was a heist film along with being a comic book film. And so it kind of like took the genre and did something different with it. Smaller scale too, no pun intended, like you said. The way they integrated the suit into the heist and all that stuff, I thought it worked out brilliantly, really. It's one that I always go back and rewatch quite frequently.
Oh yeah, very rewatchable. And I think that's because there's so many people that are funny in it. There's like the visual style to it, the way they visualized this kind of shrinking down works. And then you have a heist to it, so it kind of makes it fun and interesting. And it found a way to turn a Thomas the Train set into a cool action sequence.
Yeah.
And you got an origin story in there. So there's just a whole bunch of different things that kind of make it engaging, make it different, and make it pop.
I guess it's my number 5, and I'm really curious as to if this one's gonna make your list, if it's gonna be higher up or not. And it killed me to put it at number 5 because I adore this movie so much. I find it to be Ben Affleck's best film, and that is The Town. I am in love with this movie. From the second I saw the trailer for it, I was all in. It looked like they were doing a little bit of Michael Mann in the film, and to some extent it is a Michael Mann, crime thriller, but I love the characters, especially Jeremy Renner. I mean, he is insane in this film. It's really understandable why he got a Best Supporting Actor nomination. He is that good. The conflict that is going on in Ben Affleck's character about him wanting to get out of the crime life, but he's so in tune with it. His roots are in the crime life, and then you got John Hamm who's chasing him down. And then on top of that, you've got some awesome heist sequences, especially the most memorable one in the film, I think, is when they wear the nun masks. And then, they also find a way to rob Fenway Park. On top of, just having great heist elements, the character development is on point. You really feel for Ben Affleck, even though at times he is kind of a despicable person. And Rebecca Hall, as well as the love interest, I found her chemistry with Ben Affleck to be really fantastic. And their relationship as it progresses is one of the more intriguing elements. How is he gonna hide hide this life of crime from the love of his life. And, you know, you obviously see what happens, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Blake Lively. She is terrific in this film. All around, a really solid heist film in the same vein as a Michael Mann movie. I can't praise this movie enough. More people need to see it. I truly.
To that point.
Yeah.
I have never seen The Town. Oh. To my shame, I am fully aware. I have no excuse. There's like, it's one of those ones where I just go, oh, it just never happened. I've seen all of Ben Affleck's other movies, and so it's one of those ones that it was always on the list. I was always interested in it, always wanted to see it when it got all the praise, all the buzz, all that fun stuff, and it just never happened, which... To my shame, to my embarrassment, I have not seen The Town.
Well, I'm telling you got, especially, you know, with Den of Thieves coming out, you're in a heist mood, watch it, because it's a longer movie, but it's really, really engaging. And, you know, kind of like how The Departed was a great, you know, Boston-based movie, The Town is another really solid Massachusetts, like Boston-based film. If you love movies set in Boston or movies about Boston that showcase the people and the culture, watch this movie. It's one of those kinds of films. All right, now, Sean, it's time for your number 4. What do you got?
Number 4 for me, I went with Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Oh my gosh. I love that movie. It killed me not to put it on there.
Guy Ritchie's original film, back when he was these gangster underground films, back in the day, I just loved these Guy Ritchie movies, and just so much energy, so distinct, unique. And you talk about movies set in Boston, you know, this one being set in London and the underground and the was it Cagney rhyming slang, and just so much energy. And as a heist movie, a very different type of heist where it's not a bank robbery, they're robbing weed dealers and stuff. All the characters are so vibrant, lively, energetic. The dialogue is so witty, and like for years, it took my brain a while to get stop thinking about Jason Statham as this guy. Like that's what he was to me for years. Even after he started doing the Transporter movies and Crank and stuff, I still thought about him just from these Guy Ritchie movies because they were just so distinctive, informative in my love of films and seeing different types of movies. And so this one, as the different type of wacky heist comedy in the underground world of London, this was one it didn't come to my mind at all until I was just researching, and I went, oh, absolutely, that one has got to make my list. I mean, I've watched this movie just so many times. Vinnie Jones, I mean, just all the characters are just so good. The style with the flashbacks, the way he shoots oh man, I could just rave.
No, it's great stuff, and it's, you know, it's one of those movies where this is where we started to see the potential of not only Guy Ritchie, but Matthew Vaughn, because Matthew Vaughn, I believe, produced not only this, but Snatch as well. But the thing I love about this movie, and I think you hit the nail on the head, are the characters. I mean, they're the most memorable part about it, and the way it showcases, like you were saying, like the street level of London and all that stuff. Jason Statham, I mean, it's a phenomenal movie that I'm sad to say I have not seen in a few years, and I need to revisit. But definitely one of Guy Ritchie's best, I would say.
Yeah, that's where I kind of wish he would go back to his roots. And I didn't hate King Arthur, but just kind of his style and everything works so well with this kind of narrative, this type of story. And I just feel like his talents are being wasted. And to your point about Matthew Vaughn, I feel like he's almost carrying that torch of what Guy Ritchie was doing back in the day a lot more than what Guy Ritchie is doing.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. It's kind of funny because they have distinct styles of their own, but it's almost like Guy Ritchie is the more like erratic version of Matthew Vaughn. It's really quite interesting that those two ended up working together. But anyways, all right, I guess it's time for my number 4. And my number 4 is a movie that I would hope is on your list, but probably much higher up. And for a lot of reasons, it probably should be higher up on my list. But, you know, these are just other films that I would prefer to watch more. And that is The Usual Suspects. Bryan Singer crafts one of the most iconic crime films of all time. The screenplay by Christopher McQuarrie was nominated for an Oscar, well deserving, one of the best crime screenplays ever. Obviously, we've got Kevin Spacey, Benicio del Toro, Stephen Baldwin, everyone in this movie. The whole structure of it is so fascinating because there's so much mystery that surrounds everything that's going on in this film, that surrounds Kaiser Soze. Who is he? Does he exist? Is this someone who's really going out there? Is a giant crime lord out there? Who knows? And I loved how they took the route of Kevin Spacey speaking with the feds, saying, oh, this guy does exist. He's done all this. He's done this, this, and this. The entire, main cast, that are put in jeopardy. And they cut to the end. We've got Kevin Spacey there. And you're like, what is going on with this guy? And then the best twist, probably one of the best twists, if not the best twist in all of cinema happens. It is unbelievable, and it's a no-brainer why Kevin Spacey won the Oscar for this. Separating the art from the artist here, given all this stuff that's happened, there's something about this movie that is just so iconic and ingrained in pop culture that it's hard not to put on the list. It's a phenomenal film.
Yeah, when I think kind of what you alluded to in there, and this one's, it was in my runners-up.
Oh, really?
I actually kind of tried to pick some of the off-the-wall picks because I trying to balance out our two lists so we could talk a little bit more. Kind of what you talked about with, you got a guy like Chris McQuarrie who goes on to have this great career. You got Bryan Singer who goes on to have this great career. And you just kind of have this crossing point to where the lively energy of two great storytellers come together to take a heist story, and we had plenty of heist stories, but told with such great storytelling and use of wit, and the way the story's told with an unreliable narrator that kind of takes us on this journey, and we don't know what we can trust and what we can believe, that all leads up to this great conclusion. And also one of those movies where you look at the cast now and you think, of course you're gonna have a great movie. You've got this amazing cast of people. Yeah, but 20 years ago, Kevin Spacey was not the Kevin Spacey that we know.
Not at all.
Benicio del Toro was, he was the guy that was a henchman in a Bond movie a few years before that. And these guys weren't who we know they are today. And so it's one of those just special moments where you see a movie from over 20 years ago and you got an A-list director, A-list screenwriter who's now A-list director, A-list talent throughout. And this is kind of that movie that launched them, and you watch it and you go, I see why. This is a wonderfully acted, crafted film that just shows what you can do, taking familiar types of stories and telling them with excellence.
Absolutely. And it's funny because, I think one of the few ones out of this cast that really hasn't skyrocketed to like super success is Stephen Baldwin. And I mean, it probably has to do with the fact that he's overshadowed by his brother, but and I found him to be really solid in this. And Benicio del Toro too is one of the most unforgettable characters in this movie. He always does a great job of playing those wacky, off-the-wall kind of guys.
Well, even mentioning Stephen Baldwin, you think back when the movie came out, he was probably one of the bigger headline names in it, because in the mid-90s, everybody with a Baldwin as a last name was like they were trying to make the next Alec Baldwin. And so he was probably the headline name in it, and then you watch the movie, and it's not that he does a bad job, but I mean, you got Kevin Spacey and Benicio del Toro, and so then looking back on it, he's the other guy in the movie.
Exactly, which is kind of funny. But yeah, anyways, all right, Sean, on to the number 3 now. What's your pick for number 3?
My number 3 pick, I went for maybe one of my favorite movie-going experiences ever. Not one of my favorite movies ever, but just a movie that was an absolute blast in the theater, and that's Fast 5.
Oh, dude, that, once again, like you were with The Usual Suspects, this was on my side list.
Like for me, I wasn't a gigantic fan of the first 4 movies. They were just kind of like movies you throw on in the background or something like that. And my wife likes cars. She's a little bit more into movies like this, and went to go see it. I was like, they're throwing The Rock into the mix. This should probably be a good bit of fun. And we went to go see the midnight screening, and this was back when midnight screenings were actual midnight screenings at an XD theater, so massive theater, stadium seats, absolutely packed. The parking lot was just filled with muscle cars and racers and everything. And the theater's just amped up, pumped up, ready for this movie to start. This weird incident happens where some guy started running down the stadium seats, and then he jumps over the arm rail, but it's a hallway. So he jumps down 10 feet in a hallway, and I don't think he did it on purpose, in front of everyone in the theater. So it's just this bizarre scenario that just kind of went into this movie so amped up, energetic. And I'm just thinking, another street racing movie. Then you see the movie, and it's basically Ocean's 11 with cars. It's the machoer, dumber, more action-based version of it. Kind of showed what the peak of the Fast and the Furious franchise could be. The best use of the usual cast of characters for Fast and the Furious. Putting The Rock in there made it a ton of fun. You've got a heist involving cars pulling bank safes down the road, and then the lead bad guy in it, Almeida, I forget the guy's name, but he always plays this guy in movies. That's his 2 roles in life, is playing either the drug cartel dealer or the government agent that turns out that he's working with the drug cartel guys.
Right. That's so true. Yeah.
And so I just love this movie. Just absolute blast. This to me is kind of a perfect example of dumb fun. And of heist movies, this is the dumbest fun heist movie for me.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with you. I mean, you hit everything. Especially the final like chase when they're dragging the safe is one of my favorite just like action set pieces in a movie, period. And it's so iconic too. And actually, you know, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Den of Thieves, they kind of pay homage to that in that movie, which I found kind of funny. But really, I mean, this is the first introduction of The Rock in the franchise, who is now arguably the biggest staple of it. I mean, obviously we'll always have Vin Diesel, but you want to see The Rock or do you want to see Vin Diesel? I mean, you know, it's kind of a no-brainer. You probably want to go with The Rock just because of Mr. Charisma and such. Oh, the other chase scene that I love is the foot chase in Rio.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, my God. I mean, it hasn't gotten to, like, purely cartoon level yet, but you see the makings of, like, Fast 8 in this movie, which is kind of hilarious.
It is kind of a reoccurring theme in this of Rio. I mean, Rio is such a character to the movie, and it uses the environment of the movies or the city so well, whether you're talking about kind of the impoverished part, the downtown chase sequence, but then other action sequences, the train sequence. Three different big, very different sequences that are exciting for very different reasons. And it's just a movie that they went, how do we craft memorable sequences that are just tons of fun? And they pulled it off. There's a heist that they also pull off that ends. I don't want to, if someone hasn't seen this one, go see it. But even the way it kind of has the final conclusion with The Rock and the bad guy and the bank safe and everything, the little final moments of it, you went, yes, you landed the ship. Nicely done.
All right, time for my number 3. So my number 3 is, it's kind of a cheat. It is, I have to be honest, but they are 2 movies, and I will ultimately pick one, but I want to talk about both of them because they're so good. It is the pinnacle of heist. It is initially what you think of when you think of a heist film. It's really hard not to think of these movies, and that is Ocean's 11 and Ocean's 13. Now, if I'm going to put one on the list, it will be Ocean's 11, but I have such reverence for Ocean's 13 because I actually saw that movie before I saw Ocean's 11. And I mean, and they're both kind of similar in premise. The only difference is Al Pacino is like the bad guy in the third one, and Andy Garcia is the bad guy in the first one. But anyways, I mean, what a star-studded cast. We've got George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Don Cheadle, Casey Affleck before he was really big. Yeah. It's crazy that they were able to assemble this cast. I mean, Andy Garcia. Oh, Julia Roberts. Phenomenal cast here. This is only something that Steven Soderbergh would be able to pull off. It's so much fun. They really do a great job of making it stylized, having a really witty script, great characters, great motives. And when the heist is going down, you've seen the whole planning beforehand, so you're ready for this to go flawlessly and naturally. For the most part, they're able to pull it off. The finale when they're looking at the fountain going up, what they've just done, it's just pinnacle heist film. I can't think of another film that encapsulates the genre as perfectly as these movies are, and are as fun as these movies are. The interactions between the crew are why you go see these movies, aside from the heist element. The chemistry is off the charts with these guys. I mean, I don't know. I could praise this movie all day long, but I would assume most of you have already seen Ocean's 11 or Ocean's 13. I mean, it's pinnacle Steven Soderbergh, and it's pinnacle heist film.
It's on my list. It's higher up on my list, so I will save my thoughts until later.
Sure, good. All right, Sean, what's your number 2?
All right, went for another outside the box pick and went Inception.
Oh my God, that's my number 2.
Oh, perfect. There we go.
Yes, so we could talk about it. Yeah, excellent. I mean, I'll let you go first, but yeah, it's great.
So for me, I think that this is Christopher Nolan's best crafted script. Because of the world building of it, because the movie has so many different interpretations of what's going on, and it puts evidence for each one of them. Whichever direction you want to go, you can build a case for what happens at the end of the movie. And just finding a way to take this idea of what if you could go into people's dreams and build a taut heist action thriller into that, and crafting so many memorable sequences throughout it, exploring ideas, exploring dreams, amazing visuals, having a cast that is 50% people that were, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, as this is going to be Leonardo DiCaprio, Michael Caine, the regulars coming back. But like, this is the first movie that Tom Hardy popped out to me.
Yes.
He was like, when I remember seeing this movie, like, who's that guy right there? Like, that guy's so charming and cool. That guy's probably going places in life. And then like 2 weeks later, they announced he will be playing Bane. And I went, there you go. Then
exactly. Yeah.
And he'd been around in Hollywood for a while, but this was the first movie that it just, like, he's so good, and this is where he kind of popped out for a lot of us.
And not only Tom Hardy, but I mean, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, for me especially. But I mean, he had been in plenty of stuff before then, but I think this was the one where people really started to take notice of him.
Yes, so like for me, and that's a big deal for me because Joseph Gordon-Levitt is my age. So I remember him 30 Rock from the Sun and 10 Things I Hate About You. And now, I mean, those were my high school years. And so I knew him extremely well. And then for 8 years, that's all he was reruns and rewatching his movies. And then it's like, why are they casting the guy from those? Isn't he some washed up has-been teenage heartthrob from my day? And then I was wrong. He's so much more than that.
He's great, yeah.
This is kind of one of those ones that was absolutely that turning point to where he just went, no, I'm a grown-up.
Absolutely. This really showcased his dramatic acting chops, and what better than to be kind of like fathered into the genre by Christopher Nolan. The guy is just outstanding. I kind of go back and forth between this and then the Dark Knight trilogy, which I consider to be one entity, truthfully. But this is probably my favorite Christopher Nolan film. I think Dunkirk is his best directed, but this movie, the fact that it didn't win Best Picture I'm a little salty about it. Name something else from that year that was more memorable than Inception. From the marketing standpoint alone, everyone knows the song from the trailers, just the giant bomb and everything like that. And then the fact that we're going into a dream world to plant an idea in there, which is essentially a weird version of a heist. I mean, it's all crazy stuff. And when you're watching it, you don't realize that you're watching a heist film. But then afterwards, you take a step back and you're like, that was a heist film. It was so beautifully done. Obviously, Tom Hardy, we touched on, but I can't stress enough how much I love him in this movie. And especially when they get to the level in the Snow Fortress and all stuff like that. Being a big James Bond fan, it's very evident that they were trying to emulate On Her Majesty's Secret Service, the George Lazenby one, and I very much appreciated that. That showed Nolan's love for the character in the franchise. But Leonardo DiCaprio is outstanding in this. Ellen Page is a great counterpart to him. Michael Caine makes his obligatory Nolan cameo, well, his extended cameo. But anyways, this movie is so iconic, so memorable. I loved it instantly after I saw it. It is pinnacle Chris Nolan, in my opinion. It's just, this is what the man does. He blows your mind. The spinning top at the end is just leaves the answer to you. He leaves it to you. And that's what I love about him as a director.
Yes. And when you think back of the last 10 years, last 20 years, and you think of original concept, original property, blockbusters, or just original concepts in general, it's tough to top this one.
It really is. With how critically and commercially successful it was and how ingrained in pop culture it was, much like we were talking about with The Usual Suspects, it's hard to find another property, like you said, that is as original as this and has made as big of an impact.
It's a movie that it's intelligent, it's original, it has amazing visuals. It has memorable action sequences. It has the whole package of what you want from a blockbuster. It's the message to Hollywood to go, look, trust these guys from time to time. They can do it. You just get the right guys, trust them with the right big project.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is just, it's more reason why Chris Nolan needs to keep making movies in Hollywood. Maybe one day he'll be recognized for his contributions to cinema. All right, so we're down to the final one, number one, since both of our number twos were Inception. Sean, what is your number one, even though I know what it is?
So, as I said before, when you talked about Ocean's 11, I said it was higher up on my list, and that's because it is my number one pick. You covered it pretty nicely. This is the movie that comes to mind for a lot of people. There's two movies that come to mind. My number one and your number one, I'm pretty sure. It's a movie that's just so much fun. It has an incredible big elaborate heist that all these different elements to it. And where I talked about like The Usual Suspects being one where it was kind of like surprised these guys went on to be big stars. This is the movie where Hollywood just went, let's just get everybody and put them in one. It's like a big party of A-listers intentionally, and you just feel the fun of it as you're watching the movie. Holds up so well, so much so that I'm actually excited about the one that's coming out later this year with the ladies.
It doesn't look too bad. Yeah,
like it's one of those ones when they first announced it, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be ridiculous. And then as soon as they started putting posters and trailers, I was like, no, I'm actually really excited for this. And that's a lot of that, just so much nostalgia for the fun of this one. This one came in at my number one because movies is just so iconic. It's the one that comes to mind for me.
No, and honest to God, it probably deserves to be number one on everyone's list just because of the icon factor. But for me, there's a movie that is just jaw-droppingly incredible. And number one for me is Heat. It's really hard for me not to put this movie at number one when you've got De Niro and Pacino going at it in a film. They're two sides to the same coin. We've got that incredible coffee house scene, probably one of the best dialogue scenes in cinema, period. Just the interaction between these two like crime film all-stars coming together in one scene, because I don't think before that scene that they had actually been on screen with each other before.
They hadn't.
Yeah, and just seeing that moment come to fruition was incredible.
And at the point in time in their career, because you think if they do that now, they've been doing these crap, dirty grandpa and stuff. But you think, back in 1995 when they do that, they're at the peak. They're at the top of their game. So two icons finally do a scene together. And it's an amazing movie.
Oh my gosh!
And just the right, perfect moment for it to happen.
It really is. It's something that I love about this movie is how it is a staple of the genre. You've seen many other directors try and imitate the style, the aesthetic, the feel of it. I mean, most recently in Den of Thieves, obviously, but even in The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan, it is very prevalent that Heat was an inspiration for that movie. And on top of that, not just De Niro and Pacino, but Val Kilmer actually gives a really solid performance in the movie. Much like what I was talking about with The Town, it's not just about the heist. It's about where these guys are at their point in their lives. De Niro is a criminal. He's been a lifetime criminal. He's finally trying to get out of the game, one last job, and he's done. He's found a woman that he wants to settle down with. Pacino is this all-star, criminal catching cop, I guess we can say, who's, having some problems at home. And Natalie Portman is in this movie. And seeing how they're both dealing with their home lives and how it's affecting their work lives is incredibly done here. And then obviously the iconic heist scenes, like the main one where they rob the bank, that is one of the most tense moments in the entire movie. And then obviously the conclusion to it, the showdown, is exactly what you would want. It's a 3-hour long crime epic, so when you sit down and watch that, you're in for a long film, but you don't expect it to be as engaging and as enthralling as it is. In my opinion, it is Michael Mann's best work. I don't think he's been able to top it yet, and it proves why, for me at least, he is one of the masters of the crime genre. We've got Steven Soderbergh in a different kind of tone on one side, and then we've got Michael Mann on the other side. Very much the crime epic, the dramatic tension. I can talk about this movie all day, but anyways, that's why Heat for me is number one.
Yeah, so for me, I just haven't watched it in a while, and so I knew it was going to be on your list, so I left it off mine so I could squeeze in some of my creative picks. That's the reason it's not on my list. I actively I took it off because I knew it was on yours. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about a movie that just has influence, that the movie itself is more, it's not as remembered as the movies it influences much, because The Dark Knight is so iconic and remembered by current audiences so much. But anybody that knows anything about movies is well aware Christopher Nolan has openly stated this is the influence. Like, no Heat, no Dark Knight. And when you say things like that, you just have to let that sink in, how important of a movie this is. Like, the movie that a lot of people pick as the best comic book movie of all time does not happen if this movie didn't happen. And when they say things like that, they're just talking about the tension, the heist, the direction of it. And then going back to what we talked about before, it's not even talking about the fact that these iconic legends of acting of the crime genre having scenes together with amazing dialogue. We're not even talking about that when we talk about the influence of this movie.
I know.
And then kind of, as you mentioned before, when you think about the iconic heist movie shootout, like this is the one. As I mentioned before, there's two heist movies that are the two. Ocean's 11 is the fun one, and Heat as the tense crime thriller. Those are the two, and that's kind of, I also wiggled my list to make sure that we could probably make that happen. And so there you have it. I mean, just two amazing. One's fun, one is just dramatic. Two excellent examples of how to take a genre into very different things with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both of our lists are a phenomenal representation of the genre. So there you have it, guys. There are our top 5 heist films. Real quickly, we're just going to touch on our honorable mentions. Not going to dive into them too much, but there's a lot of heist films, so naturally we're going to have honorable mentions. So Sean, what are a few that you maybe left off?
Bottle Rocket, Wes Anderson's first movie. It's actually a heist film with the Wilson brothers, just real quirky. It's like light Wes Anderson doing something totally different. So that was fun. Die Hard. Die Hard is about a heist. Because I think more action movie, I didn't want to put it on my list, but I wanted to throw it in here now. The Italian Job.
That's one on mine as well.
The Score with Edward Norton and Robert De Niro. Just a nice little middle of the road heist movie. Just nice at a point in time in Edward Norton's career where he was really knocking it out of the park in every movie. And then the new one, Den of Thieves. I really dug it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much we both really enjoy that movie. I mean, I was anticipating it as I think you were too, but it really caught me by surprise. I wouldn't say it's one of the more memorable ones, but it's one of the more enjoyable ones, I guess you could say. For me, I would say Reservoir Dogs, even though they don't actually show the heist, Quentin Tarantino's directorial debut. Inside Man. Love that movie. Clive Owen is phenomenal in that, as is Denzel Washington. The Italian Job, like you mentioned, another solid movie. Just a fun one, too, in the Mini Cooper chase. Mini Cooper chase is iconic. It's why people drive Mini Coopers these days. You mentioned Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Snatch, Guy Ritchie's other film. And then I'll finish up here with a little Point Break.
Yes.
Point Break is as ridiculously 90s and dude bro it is. It is... come on. It's a great movie. Be sure to let us know what your top 5 heist films are in the comment section below. There's a lot of them out there. I mean, the Thomas Crown Affair. Logan Lucky, the most recent one that came out. Another solid Soderbergh film. Let us know your top 5 heist films in the comment section below. And thank you, Sean, for joining me on this video. It was a great time. I hope we can do some more of these in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, so you can find me on YouTube. Just type in Sean Chandler Talks About. I'll show up. And like I said, I talk about movies, do a lot of ranking videos on my channel, do a little bit of TV reviews. But the key thing is I like to talk movies with you guys. So I really do read all the comments, try and respond back. I just get excited talking about movies. That's why I was so excited when Griffin invited me over here. I'm also on Twitter. My handle's Kirk Never Died. And once again, another place where you can talk movies with me over there.
Yes, absolutely. He will even make videos about your mean comments if you really want to insult him. It's true. Well, anyways, guys, if you like this video, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more movie reviews, movie-related content. You can also like Men vs. Movies on Facebook and follow us on Twitter simply by searching Men v Movies. And lastly, guys, if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, that'll do it for this video, guys. Until next time, take care.